Formula One on 5 Live.
Welcome to Bahrain. A little bit chilly and a little bit breezy here at the Bahrain International Circuit, where the sun has set and the lights have come on. And after 3 days of winter testing and 3 practice sessions, we're finally going to get a bit more of an understanding about the pecking order for this record-breaking 24-race season. It is finally time to set the grid for the Bahrain Grand Prix, the first round of the 2024 F1 season. My name's Rosanna Tennant. I'm down in the pit lane at the circuit, and up in the commentary box, our lead commentator Harry Benjamin is joined by racing driver and broadcaster Alice Powell and the BBC's chief F1 writer Andrew Benson. This is it, guys. We are finally ready to see these cars, see what they've really got, because I don't know about you, but I think there might have been a little bit of holding back, maybe even a little bit of sandbagging going on over the last couple of days. Harry, it's time to get excited. We are finally going to have our first qualifying session of 2024. How are you feeling ahead of it?
I'm excited. I'm up on my feet in the commentary box. I can see the main grandstand just below me that's just still filling up. We're right opposite the pit lane. I can see Carlos Sainz and Charles Leclerc in their Ferrari and Oscar Piastri and Lando Norris in their McLaren right directly into the garage. Look, everyone came into this weekend thinking it's going to be another Max Verstappen and a Red Bull walkover. So far in free practice, it feels like people have been holding back. I'm hearing a lot of chat about engine modes, who's gone high, who hasn't quite turned up the wick yet. But it also does look a bit closer than we all thought it might be. So there is a small light of hope at the end of the tunnel.
A glimmer, perhaps.
Glimmer, that's the word.
And you know what, you're right. We haven't seen the 3-time world champion Max Verstappen at the top of the timesheets yet this weekend. It's been Daniel Ricciardo in the RB. It's been Lewis Hamilton in the Mercedes. And in FP3, it was Carlos Sainz in the Ferrari. So what's going on, Andrew Benson? I know you've been crunching the numbers, looking at the data. Are Max Verstappen and Sergio Perez in Red Bull, are they just waiting to unleash the bulls come qualifying? Andrew Benson, I'm sure, is busy looking at the data and therefore maybe not willing to give me his thoughts at this particular point. Maybe he's saving it all.
Rosanna,
he's back. I knew he would be.
I'm afraid that was a producer snafu there, Rosanna. Paddy in the corner of the booth here. He hadn't turned me up. He obviously doesn't trust me. Keeps me silent most of the time. No, I think everybody's fearing the Verstappen, pole position and everything, but Harry's absolutely right. The word up and down the pit lane is that it's looking really close. Red Bull did run a high power mode in that last practice session and Verstappen was not fastest. Now, of course, fuel loads also play a part and his lap time wasn't set as late as some others. But the Mercedes look competitive, the Ferraris look competitive, the McLarens look competitive. Lando Norris should have been half a second quicker on his lap than he actually was because of an error. Fernando Alonso in the Aston Martin's looking competitive. It is really, apparently, all to play for ahead of qualifying.
And last year, guys, we used to speak about really the other teams capitalising if Red Bull made a mistake. But actually, if it's this close, it could be really nip and tuck. And we saw some great qualifying performances from the likes of Ferrari over the last few races of the season in 2023. So perhaps it could be somebody totally different on pole. Maybe we're expecting Max Verstappen, but maybe one of these teams, the McLarens, the Ferraris, the Mercedes, or the Astons, could take top spot this evening. What do you reckon?
Well, I'm going to go with it. I'll go, yes. Let's go with it. I've changed my tune now. I've changed it. Temperatures have dropped slightly. We are now under the lights. It's dark. So that's going to have an effect as to what we've seen already. We've only had one representative session in the form of free practice 2 yesterday, which was in similar conditions. So it's a step into the unknown, but it is tight. And I think, Red Bull are obviously going to be there. Ferrari and Mercedes are nip and tuck. Throw an Aston, throw a McLaren in. Maybe even an RB will be at the top and fighting with the bottom end of that top part. So it's close, particularly in that midfield as well. So Q1 and Q2, where we eliminate the slowest 5 drivers in each session, is also going to be really fascinating to watch.
So you've mentioned RB, Harry. Of course, that's the newly branded AlphaTauri team. Could they be the surprise then, or are there some other drivers we should watch out for who could make it into the top 10 in Q3 this evening?
Well, there's been a lot of talk around RB coming into this season due to their even closer ties with Red Bull, but you put that to one side. They seem to have revamped that team. They've got Laura Mekies, who's moved over from Ferrari, now heading up as team principal. Daniel Ricciardo, Yuki Tsunoda, Yuki Tsunoda was coming on really strong last year. Daniel Ricciardo back for his first full season. Certainly they're going to be ones to watch. But Williams and Alex Albon in particular as well. You can't rule Albon out. He gets the most out of that car. He goes beyond the limit and has been looking quick, although the Williams might not be as strong off the bat as they were hoping for. But if anybody can get that car up and nipping at the cusps of a Q2, maybe not a Q3, but certainly in Q2 it will be Albon and Williams.
And Alice Powell, we've had 3 days of winter testing. We've had 3 practice sessions. Who do you think still on the back foot? Who's still got work to do as we come into this qualifying session? Because we're still at the beginning of a learning curve for so many teams who are getting to know their new machinery for this season.
Well, I think probably one of the most obvious ones, and has been talked about in the paddock, is Alpine. They've got a whole completely different car compared to what they had last year. Only the steering wheel has apparently survived, and they have not had a strong free practice sessions, and kind of, I would say, didn't look fantastic in pre-season testing. So they've certainly got a lot of work to do. And I was down talking to a couple of guys at Williams as well who said, yeah, we've got a bit of work to do as well. We're not as good as we expected. So those are probably the 2 teams. I mean, Alex Albon has had a fairly strong practice session, but they feel that they've still got a lot of work to do, and they expected themselves to be higher up than they are.
And you'd expect that. This is the first round of a 24-race-long season. Plenty of action to come. Qualifying is underway. Harry Benjamin, get ready to talk us through it. Who's going to be on pole for the Bahrain Grand Prix?
And that is the question. The sun has gone down. The floodlights now illuminate this Bahrain International Circuit, and all those questions will soon be answered. Testing done, practice done. It's time for the teams to lay down their cards, and so we can truly see where these 20 drivers stack up. Qualifying underway. 3 sessions to qualifying. Q1 first up, 18 minutes, already down to 16 minutes and 3 seconds, where we will eliminate the slowest 5 drivers, and straight out onto the track, Carlos Sainz, Charles Leclerc in the Ferraris, Esteban Ocon and Pierre Gasly in the Alpines. They've all come out on the medium compound of tyre, and it's Carlos Sainz who is making his way down into turn 1 at the moment on that medium compound tyre. The man who was fastest in free practice 3, the man who starts his final season with the Scuderia. He will be replaced by Lewis Hamilton in 2025, but will be giving it his all right to the very end of this, the longest season in Formula 1. Makes his way through the right-hander of turn 4, has a little bit of a twitch on the steering wheel. Now he makes his way through the middle sector, turns 5, 6 and 7, the S's, left, right, then left again on the steering wheel before you get into the deep braking zone of turn 8, a right-hander as you then head uphill over the crest into the tricky double left-hander, downhill cambered turns 9 and 10. Gets another twitch on the steering wheel as the rear just lights up slightly on him. DRS, the drag reduction system, the rear wing flap flies open to give more drag and less drag. Then under braking, it shuts through turn 11 up into turn 12. The right-hander flat out. It's very windy in Bahrain, has been all weekend, and that is the corner where cars are being very affected. He makes his way through fairly smoothly at the moment, but Charles Leclerc has gone for his fast lap as well, and he's quicker than Sainz in sector 1, who is now approaching the last 2 corners. The Spaniard will set the first lap time of the day in qualifying. He makes his way to the line, and what's it going to be for Carlos Sainz? It's a 1:31.208 to go fastest, and the only time so far. Charles Leclerc looks like he will not pip him. Lost a bit of time, Leclerc, in the last 2 corners in the last 2 sectors compared to his teammate. It's Sainz and Leclerc at the moment. We now look to Ocon and Gasly in the Alpines, who have been struggling so far this weekend. Ocon goes 3rd. Gasly then will come across the line now. Where does that place him? Just behind his teammate in 4th. Everybody else still in the pit lane, Alice.
Yeah, they are. And actually, Gasly's quite a way behind Ocon. Ocon seemed to have the upper hand, really, on him today. And we touched on, didn't we, during free practice 3, that Ocon's seat is probably under a little bit of pressure compared to what it was last year. I know he runs out of contract this year, but Gasly really did a great job of coming into the team. And Ocon really needed to pull his socks up because Gasly finished ahead of him in quite a few races last year. But at the moment, it's Ocon that has the upper hand in this first qualifying session. A long way to go, and everyone else at the moment seems to be just sitting, just waiting for the track, the temperature to potentially cool a little bit. I'm looking out at these flags that have been giving us good indications of the direction and the strength of the wind, and they are continuing to flutter and change direction, and the gusts are what make it really tricky for these drivers, because it's constantly changing, and one corner may be perfectly fine one lap and then you'll get a gust of wind that will chuck you the next lap. And Gasly has had his lap time deleted at its first track limits of the qualifying session.
Ding, ding, ding. First one, and immediately gets deleted. We have a few more cars now making their way out of the pit lane onto this 5.4 kilometre, 3.3 mile track. 15 turns, 9 to the right and 6 to the left. It is rough, it is bumpy, it is undulating, and with 3 very long straights as well. DRS zones can provide some very good overtaking spots too. Now they're all crawling out of the pit lane quite slowly, aren't they? Nico Hülkenberg comes out in front of Daniel Ricciardo in the RB, his teammate Yuki Tsunoda right behind him. Then it's Kevin Magnussen feeds out. Albon is out there at the moment in the Williams. The 2 Saubers have emerged in the form of Zhou Guanyu and Valtteri Bottas, but we'll all be waiting for Max Verstappen.
Yeah, they are all stopping. Can I go or not? I don't want to stop.
Now, new for this year is you're not meant to be stopping in the pit lane. So whoever's caused this traffic jam, they're going to have to do some rewind on the footage here. Shouldn't be doing that. So no wonder Max is on the phone to his team saying, well, I don't want to really stop here. And the sound you can hear now is the replay we will witness of Gasly, and it looks like to me turn 13. Yeah, it is. So that's why he was over the white line. Lap time deleted. So we'll keep an eye on that one, Harry, to see what the stewards take up on the stopping in the pit lane to create gaps.
Yeah, nothing flashing up on the screens at the moment, but we'll keep you informed as and when it does. 10 minutes and 56 seconds remain of Q1 in this first part of qualifying, and now after initial 4 cars with Sainz, Leclerc, Ocon and Gasly all heading out onto the track early doors. Everybody else is now joining them with the exception of Sergio Perez, who has remained in the pit lane for the time being, but a lot of slow traffic making its way on pit exit. But people starting to head out onto the laps. The first Ferrari lap times were on the medium compound of tyres. Most other people now heading out on the soft compound of tyres. Alex Albon coming through sector 1 at the moment, going very quickly, as is Daniel Ricciardo in the RB. We'll wait and see what Alex Albon can do in the middle sector. His teammate Logan Sargent has set off as well. The 2 McLarens out there on the soft compound tyre. Oscar Piastri weaving left and right, trying to get heat into these tyres. So important, isn't that, Alice? Track temperature, down to 21 degrees now.
So important. It's probably one of the most important things you do in qualifying, apart from setting the fast lap, of course, and stringing it all together, is bringing in the tyres. And you work a lot in the junior categories because it can make or break your qualifying. If you don't just get them in the correct temperature window, then that's it. You're going to have no grip, or it will tail off at the end of the lap. And it looks like Piastri had a little bit of a wiggle there on the soft tyre coming out of turn 1. Wouldn't be surprised if he ends up backing off this lap. No, he's still going at the moment.
Bit of traffic just getting out of his way as he slings that McLaren into the right-hander of turn 4. Half a second up in sector 1 on Carlos Sainz as Albon completes his lap in the Williams and goes fastest on that soft compound tyre, a 1:36.92. Piastri making his way now through towards that double left-hander of turn 9 and 10. Piastri, the Australian who is now in his 2nd season with McLaren, this time last year gearing up for his first Formula 1 qualified 18th in what was a bit of a horror show for McLaren, and he couldn't even finish the race after a dreadful reliability performance, hoping for better fortunes this time around. His teammate Lando Norris is also out there on a lap at the moment. He's coming into the middle sector and looks like he might be going ever so quicker in the middle sector. Then Piastri, we'll wait and see. Hulkenberg now goes top in the Haas. A 1:30.623 as we start to paint the picture of where the pecking order may well be. But there's still over 8 minutes remaining. Piastri coming across the line now. Let's see what he can do in that McLaren. It's not as quick as Hulkenberg. It's not as quick as Albon. It's enough for third fastest and just over half a tenth of a second away from Hulkenberg. In fact, he's done the exact same lap time as Alex Albon. But on count, Matt Piastri set it after Albon, so he goes behind him. It's Hulkenberg, Albon, Piastri, the top three. Make that the top four as Lando Norris comes across the line and goes fastest. But still waiting for lap times from Alonso, Verstappen, Russell, Perez, Hamilton and Gasly. And a reminder, we'll be eliminating the bottom 5 drivers. The slowest 5 drivers from this session will not go through to the next part of qualifying.
Here comes Max Verstappen now, charging up to the line and goes top. Just over a tenth of a second quicker than Lando Norris. Sound you can hear now is George Russell, who's not had a great first or middle sector, and the time shows it. He only pops up into 4th place, 0.3 of a second, and we sit tightly and wait now for Lewis Hamilton, who steams out of the last corner. And where's he going to end up? Only 9th.
Yeah, Hamilton, at one point he was 7/10 off coming through the middle sector for the 7-time champion. Verstappen, though, heads the field for the time being. 1:30.031. His teammate Sergio Perez, 2/10 behind, has just gone into 4th spot. The 2 Ferraris are back out on track now. They've taken off the medium compounder tyre and put the soft compounder tyre, the red-walled rubber. And this is the sound of Charles Leclerc making his way round the final corner. Pit lane entry to his right. He carries on over the line and goes 5th fastest, a 1:32.43. At the moment, in the danger zone, 16th and lower is Bottas in the Sauber. Sainz, who is out there on a lap at the moment, though, and he is fastest of anybody in the middle sector. Carlos Sainz has been flying since free practice 3. Let's see what he does across the line in that Ferrari. He goes fastest, a 10th clear of Max Verstappen. A very nice tidy lap from the Spaniard. So it's now Joe, Bottas, Magnussen, Ocon and Gasly who are currently in that danger zone in the bottom 5 on the timing screens with 6 minutes remaining of Q1.
That's really interesting, actually, because compared to Max Verstappen, Carlos Sainz loses 0.3 of a second in the first sector, but then is purple in the final 2 sectors. Now, the first sector is pretty much turn 1, that kink turn 1, kink turn 2, and then down to turn 4, that real tricky off-camber corner. And it's actually the twisty section that he is really good, which is the middle sector. So we'll keep an eye on that. Maybe Max could have had a little bit of a toe. Maybe Ferrari haven't turned everything up. But what's happening to Lewis Hamilton? There's the sparks flying out of the back of that Mercedes. That's a lot of sparks. Not quite seen that much from Mercedes.
That Mercedes was slow to move. Hamilton slow to move.
No, I think he was out the way in plenty of time.
Logan Sargent coming out of where was that, turn 8 up towards turn 9, and the Mercedes then just moving out towards the left-hand side off the racing line. Sargent, the American in his 2nd season at Williams, as you said, Alice, not too happy about that. That's actually, I thought that George Russell's Mercedes has been, sparking quite a bit so far this weekend. At one point, we thought we almost saw what looked like flames on the underside of that Mercedes in one of the practice. They're running very low, these Mercedes cars. The most sparks out of any of them. It's emphasised by the fact we're under the lights here in Bahrain for qualifying and the race, which will take place tomorrow. After that run of fast laps, pretty much everybody has now come back into the pit lane for a little bit of a debrief and a change of tyre, and will then be sent back on their way for a final flurry. At the moment, around about a second covers the top 15 drivers. And that's all you need in this Q1. You just need to be in that top 15 to make it through to the next part of qualifying. And here they all come again with less than 4 minutes on the clock. and it's the Sauber that leads them out as Lewis Hamilton gets prepared to be ejected from the garage. Rosanna Tennant is down in the pit lane for us.
Yeah, and both Mercedes being let go, but it's Lewis Hamilton out in front of his teammate George Russell, who's been on the radio saying he thinks the tyres can do more than one push lap. This is the big question, isn't it? How long do these tyres last with their new machinery underneath them? They are all exploring the limits, and of course you need to push it to the very limit come qualifying. We've already seen people going over the limit when it comes to track limits. Pierre Gasly losing that time, as you said earlier on, Harry, but now all the cars piling out of the pit lane, and Charles Leclerc going out of the Ferrari garage as well, watching on, and the Red Bulls behind them. A little bit of a queue, but nothing as bad as we saw earlier on when they were all stacking up at the end.
Thank you, Rosanna. Yeah, they are all going a little bit slowly now, aren't they? As they trundle down the pit lane. Alonso in front of the Alpine. Out on track, though, leading the way was the Sauber of Zhou Guanyu in a revitalised Sauber team with a fluoro green livery. You can't miss it, especially under the lights. And Zhou Guanyu back for another season in Formula One, lines up alongside Valtteri Bottas at the track where he scored his first Formula One points in his rookie season a couple of years ago. We'll be hoping to try and replicate that, but at the moment the two Saubers find themselves in that elimination zone. I think Sauber been a bit anonymous so far this weekend as he weaves left and right, once again trying to get heat into the tyres. Let's hear from Leclerc.
We need to go. We are just checking the track evolution and all. Okay, so we need to make sure.
Okay, so we need to go, and that's referring to getting out of the pit lane. And Leclerc has overtaken one of the Alpines, which was trundling very slowly on the pit lane exit. Leclerc moving his Ferrari to the right-hand side and overtaking and moving on his way. We'll see if that comes back to bite him or not.
Well, he'll have something to fight with that, because I don't know what they're doing, but the rule is you can't just trundle down the pit lane at a slow pace. You've got a pit limiter on. You're meant to go up to the speed of your pit limiter. And Alonso, I think it was Esteban Ocon, and there was another car there as well, were just sort of trundling along to try and make a space. But that is interesting, because everyone is going out for a second run, and that just shows that they are really expecting a jump in track evolution and looking at the mini sectors.
Nico Hülkenberg is lighting up the first sector.
And so is Alex Albon at the moment as well. So its order will certainly change. Whether it will change in the bottom half or the bottom five, I'm not sure, but it's certainly going to change a little bit higher up.
Oh, it's good to have Formula One back, isn't it? Being pushed to the absolute extremes in qualifying, setting the fastest laps you can. 1 minute left of Q1. And a rush to get into the top 15 to make it through to the next part of qualifying. At risk at the moment is Zhou Guanyu and Valtteri Bottas for Sauber, Kevin Magnussen in the Haas, and the two Alpines of Esteban Ocon and Pierre Gasly. Let's see what Zhou Guanyu has when he comes across the line. Loses a bit of time in that final sector, but goes 11th fastest. We'll see what his teammate has in just a few moments' time. He has to navigate a bit of traffic, but Nico Hülkenberg has been flying throughout his laps. Such is perhaps the track evolution, but also his Haas has been looking very quick so far. Nico Hülkenberg crosses the line and goes 9th. Bottas goes up to 11th. Who else is going quickly? Kevin Magnussen has had a decent middle sector. He's got a couple of corners left to go, and Magnussen gets up into the top 10. Meanwhile, Leclerc, who was on a lap, bails out of it. Oh, he was having a rubbish lap anyway, so he comes back into the pits at the end of that one. And Leclerc decides not to go for it. He stays 6th, so he should be enough to get through on that one. At risk, though, Lewis Hamilton currently down in 15th place. Stroll in 16th, Tsunoda 17th, Ricciardo 18th, and the two Alpines still at the back. Tsunoda gets through and up into 9th spot. Let's see what Lewis Hamilton can do. He's not lighting up the timings, but it should be okay when he comes through. Let's see who else is at risk. Stroll as well, along with the two Alpines. Stroll comes across the line, goes 2nd fastest in the Aston Martin. Sainz is still fastest overall. All eyes, though, now on Lewis Hamilton as he pedals to the line. What can he do? He does make it through. It's only good enough for 10th fastest, though. That puts Bottas, Zhou, Sargent, Ocon and Gasly down in the bottom 5. We're still looking at Ocon and Gasly to set laps, but that'll be it for Bottas, Zhou and Sargent. And the two Alpines, well, we'll see what they've got. Ocon A little bit off Kevin Magnussen, less than a tenth off of him at the moment in the middle sector, but the two Alpines have been struggling so far this weekend, and indeed in pre-season testing. Gasly losing time in the middle sector as well, and I think it's going to be a bit of misery to get through for this Bahrain Grand Prix for the two Alpines. Ocon crosses the line, improves his time, but stays 19th. And Gasly also looking like he'll remain in 20th. Let's see if he can pip his teammate. No, he can't. The two Alpines will line up for the first race of the Grand Prix of the season in 19th and 20th. So at the end of all that then, Leclerc was on an outlap, by the way. That's why he came in at the end. But at the end of that, it was Bottas in 16th, eliminated, along with his teammate Zhou Guanyu in 17th, Logan Sargent in the Williams 18th, and the two Alpines of Esteban Ocon in 19th and Pierre Gasly in 20th. But it looks close in the rest of the field, Alice, doesn't it? What are your takeaways from that first session of qualifying?
What's happened to Mercedes? I would say my mates down at Williams tell me to never trust them again, because a great job from Alexander Albon. He's up there in 9th place. Alpine, wow, not big misery
well, let's hear
for them.
From Gasly.
Yeah, disaster outlap.
So maybe he says disaster outlap. Didn't look like he had any traffic. That could be tyre prep. Possibly he was, I didn't see, but maybe he was close to the cusp of making the line, because of course they were all backing each other up. That's why Leclerc decided to overtake. So there's nothing worse than they say on the radio, come on, chop chop, you need to get a move on, otherwise you're not going to get a lap, and then you have to rush your tyre prep. So possibly that's what he's going to say, but I can't really see that would have made too much of a difference of a move forward, because he wasn't really improving. So big disappointment for Sargent as well, who I would say is certainly one of those under pressure for his seat. Alexander Albon is up there in P9 and he's in 18th.
To P15 was a 10, Pierre was P20.
Copy guys, only round one. We keep going, we keep pushing. There's a race to do tomorrow as well, so I got faith in you guys, I got faith.
And that's a nice message actually from Esteban Ocon, because you need to have that positive mentality. It is ahead of the longest season in Formula One, and it is only a second covering the entire field at the end of that qualifying session. Andrew, it is closer than we thought.
Yeah, I mean, you've got to take a look. It was a little bit of a pinch of salt, that field spread, because of course Sainz, Verstappen, Norris, Alonso, Leclerc, Perez, they didn't do second laps, and Sargent.
I don't know what happened.
He turned in really early there at 10. Sorry, Andrew.
I was just going to say that's not great feedback from Logan Sargent, who 4/10 or whatever it is off Alex Albon, who doesn't seem to have improved over the winter despite all the efforts he's been making with his fitness. There's a note on the timing screens about George Russell going to be investigated for maximum delta time, so that's like how quick or slow you can go on your in or out lap. Quite often we see those and then they just get ignored, so I wouldn't get too excited or energized about that.
Okay, well that brings to an end the first part of qualifying, and a reminder, out of this session from 16th, and he will start in that position for the Grand Prix. Valtteri Bottas, then Zhou Guanyu in 17th, Logan Sargent 18th, Esteban Ocon 19th, and Pierre Gasly in 20th. The two Alpines, the two Saubers and a Williams then finding themselves at the bottom of the pecking order. The two Haas cars skated through as well in 14th and 15th. Alice, I think they'll actually be quite buoyed by that, considering how much they were downplaying their performance since, well, the end of last year, really.
No, they should be, certainly from their pace that they were doing in free practice one. Of course, we discussed, didn't we? I think they were probably doing long runs because their race runs would really let them down last year. So they should be pretty happy, certainly should. Oscar Piastri, he was a little bit down off his teammate. Lando Norris is up in 4th place, Oscar down in 12th. But yeah, scratching my head really on Mercedes, because they seemed pretty confident, didn't they? And now Lewis Hamilton's down there in P10 and George Russell's there in P8. So a disappointing session for them, Andrew?
Well, my big takeaway is about Hamilton more than Russell. Russell didn't do a second lap. Admittedly, neither did Sainz, Verstappen, Norris, Alonso, Leclerc and Russell. But Hamilton was a good few tenths off Russell on his first run, had to do a second run to get up to where he is, and he's only got up to 10th, and he's still a 10th behind Russell, who didn't do a second lap. So he looks like he's struggling, just like he was in the final practice session earlier today. But you're right. I mean, Russell and Leclerc, they a 10th apart? That's kind of where we thought Mercedes and Ferrari might be on one lap. Sainz has obviously done a really good lap there. He's looked pretty hooked up this weekend, but definitely concerning times for Lewis Hamilton heading into the second qualifying session, because there he is in P10. There's only 300 between him and Yuki Tsunoda's RB in 11th, so if he can't improve his relative pace, he's in danger of getting knocked out in this next session.
It was Sainz fastest in front of Lance Stroll in the Aston Martin with a mega lap as well, ahead of Verstappen.
Just again, Harry, Stroll did a second run and Alonso didn't. Ahead
of Verstappen, Norris and then Alonso, who on that first run was enough to keep himself in the top 5. Perez was 6th, and then Leclerc, Russell, Albon and Hamilton, as we've been discussing, were the top 10 at the end of that session. But that all now gets thrown out the window and we reset for Q2, which is already underway. 14 minutes and 35 seconds counting. No one's in a rush to get straight out, and now it's all about getting into the top 10 and the fight for Q3. And once again, the bottom 5 drivers from this session will be eliminated. And the bottom 5 from that this mid-section from the last qualifying was the 2 RBs, a McLaren and the 2 Hasses, and I think Oscar Piastri then will also be hoping to try and match his teammate as well, who was up there in the times and has been looking quick, in the form of Lando Norris, is the team in that McLaren garage, steely-eyed with arms crossed, get ready to send those cars out, but no one making any major movements at the moment. What are your predictions then, Alice, for this Q2 session?
Are we predicting who's going to go out, do we think?
Give me a bold prediction for Q2. Go on.
I think Lewis Hamilton could be at risk, because he's looks like the Mercedes doesn't look like it did on free practice 2. So unless they're just playing with us as our first cars start to pull off the tyre covers, as the McLaren heads out of the pit lane, I think Lewis is going to be at risk. Magnussen and Hulkenberg, they just about scrape through, so that those 2 drivers are likely at risk. I'd like to see Alex Albon progress through, and possibly Yuki. He might struggle a little bit. He's struggled compared to Daniel this weekend so far, hasn't he?
Yeah, Ricciardo, of course, topped free practice 1. Tsunoda qualified 13th here last year, finished the race in 8th and scored points on debut back in 2021 when he finished in 9th. So he's got some strong memories here. And once again, though, slow movements out of the pit lane. This time Lance Stroll's leading the charge. Then comes Daniel Ricciardo in the RB, followed by his teammate Yuki Tsunoda. So, we can understand that this is trying to build a gap onto the track so you're not getting held up in traffic, but you don't really see that problem as much at a track like Bahrain. You know, it's over 5 kilometres, it's wide, you can get out of the way, you can find yourself a nice bit of track and clear space to set a fast lap time.
Max Verstappen was giving a little bit of a shake of a head whilst he was sat in that queue and looking out the commentary box window, still continuing. One of the Red Bulls, that'll be Perez, is pretty much nearly stopped going out of the pit lane there, but on track. Magnussen is out there. He is on his outlap, so not yet started. He'll bring in the tyres, and he's pretty much very closely followed by Piastri, who's near enough right under his gearbox, and he'll be hoping to try and clear the Haas before he starts his flying lap, or he's going to have to really back off, and he's decided, no, I'm not going to make any crazy moves. He's going to back off. So here we go then. Magnussen will come and start the charge. Hulkenberg is just up the road in front of him. He's just crossed the line to start his first flying lap. So they will be the first 2 cars to set down a lap time.
Yep, Kevin Magnussen then, DRS open, heads towards that first braking zone into turn 1. A best qualifying result here for the Dane of 7th back in 2022 in his quite triumphant return to Haas at that time, and then followed that up with his best race result here with 5th place for the Haas team, bagging a huge haul of points. Not sure he'll be looking, will be able to quite repeat that feat. But we know Magnussen can get his elbows out when required, certainly in races, and currently on that soft compound tyre, flying through the middle sector, and the S's, the Red Bull gets out of the way and allows Magnussen to continue. Everybody once again on the soft compound of tyre, and everybody is now out there on track. 15 drivers, and the ones on fast laps at the moment are Stroll, Norris, Alonso, Tsunoda, Piastri, Ricciardo, Hülkenberg, Magnussen as well. Norris is the man who is going fastest in the first sector currently. Piastri a little bit off in that first sector, so Piastri not quite as hooked up as his teammate. This is the sound of Kevin Magnussen making his way through turn 13, getting a nice little toe off the car in front of him, which I think is a Red Bull, which does move out of the way as Magnussen then enters the final 2 corners. His teammate Nico Hülkenberg has just gone fastest, a 1:39. Let's see what Magnussen can do as he crosses the line. Not quite as quick, a 1:31.1 for Kevin Magnussen. It's the 2 Hasses with the only lap time so far. Make that now Oscar Piastri, who goes fastest, but I expect Lando Norris, who is purple sector 1, sector 2 and sector 3, goes fastest by over 6.5 tenths of a second. Lando Norris is looking hooked up in that McLaren right now. Let's turn our attention to the 2 Aston Martins, who again have been looking quick too. Lance Stroll crosses the line in 3rd. Fernando Alonso is just making his way into the final sector now. He's about 3 tenths down on Lando Norris's fastest time so far, as the 2 Ferraris now come through sector 1 as well. Max Verstappen is making his way into sector 2, and he is setting the timing screens alight and going quickly. Fastest of anybody at the moment is Max Verstappen. Alonso crosses the line, fastest of anybody in that final sector, enough to go just shy of 2 tenths away from Lando Norris. It's Norris and Alonso, the top 2 as it currently stands. Albon slots into 8th. What can Sainz do? Fastest in Q1 at the moment. He goes 3rd, but it's Max Verstappen who is currently lighting up the sector times. Fastest of anybody in the first sector, fastest of anybody in the middle sector, as Leclerc goes into 2nd. Ooh. A 10.5 off, and a little bit of a twitch from Verstappen coming through that final corner, and it goes fastest by over half a second. Max Verstappen, and hearing that everybody is on used soft tyres, but it's still allowing Verstappen and Perez to go at the head of the field. But Verstappen is also half a second clear of his own teammate Sergio Perez, who slops into 2nd. Norris, Leclerc, Alonso the top 5. Russell in the Mercedes goes 8th. Still no lap time set from Lewis Hamilton at the moment until now, as he sets the 6th fastest lap time, a 1:33. So he goes quicker than his teammate, who's down in 9th. Magnussen bailed out of his lap at the end. Oh no, he had it deleted, didn't we? It came on race control. And Magnussen then had his lap time deleted, so he's come back into the pits and we'll have to go again. I think, Alice, we're about to see why.
Yes, we are. So that's going on the exit of turn 7. He just ran a little bit. It's not where you want to run wide. It's very bumpy on the curve there, and we can see it from our replay. I wonder if he was slightly distracted by Perez in the Red Bull, so he's going to have to go again. And not a nice lock-up, because it's never nice, but a big lock-up from Fernando Alonso too.
I don't know about you, Alice, but that to me looked like one of those things where you exceed track limits, but so what, because you've gone slower, because you've made a mistake. And he was hanging on to it over that curb. He was looking like he was on the edge, might be about to lose the car. There's no way he went faster because of going wide there.
No, that was definitely a hindrance to lap time. Real bumpy, as I said, that curb there. So he will have to go again, but Max Verstappen, I mean, I don't know why I say where did he pull this out from, because he does this every time, doesn't he? But that was such an impressive lap. He did have a bit of a help from Magnussen down the front straight, getting a good toe. However, he then did a great job in the middle and last sector as well. But it was Alonso did just pip him in that final sector. So there's a bit of hope there still.
Yeah, hope.
half a second.
I'm trying to get the positives, everyone, you know? You've got to try and be positive.
Well, Verstappen is currently fastest. Everybody's coming back into the pits now. Verstappen, Perez, Norris, Leclerc, Alonso's the top 5. Hamilton, Sainz, Piastri, Russell, Stroll, the top 10. In the elimination zone, everybody from 11th downwards is Hülkenberg. Then it's Tsunoda in the RB. Then it's Ricciardo in the other RB. Albon in the Williams, and Magnussen, who had his lap time deleted, so has no time on the board, but is 15th and last. And it's still tight. The gap between Stroll and Hülkenberg, for Hülkenberg to get through to the top 10, 15 thousandths of a second. That's nothing. But in Formula One terms, it's everything.
It is. That's how close it is, and we love it when it's this close. We really, really, well, saying Verstappen, he's half a second, just over half a second down the road, but it is so tight then further back. Sainz, he'll be very disappointed with that, but maybe they're not running the full modes for these first runs, because they know it is going to be the second run that is the most important, with the track evolving. The temperature is continuing to drop. Okay, it's just over half a degree, but still the temperature is dropping. Certainly the air temperature has dropped by 1 degree, so temperature is going down, which will certainly help the engine performance, that is for sure. As out of the pits, here we go for the last runs likely in this Q2 session.
Do you think Verstappen and Perez will bother coming out again?
I think from the last...
It absolutely is. We're into the closing stages of Q2. It's looking tight, bar from Max Verstappen, who is half a second clear of the field at the moment. We're just a few moments away from finding out who will make it through into the top 10. Lewis Hamilton appears to be struggling slightly. He's down in 6th at the moment for his Mercedes, but at the moment, pole does look like it's going to go the way of Max Verstappen. Sorry, Alice, you were saying? Just had a little, for those who listen elsewhere, we were just having a little
I can't remember what we were talking about.
surprise 5 Live here. Here's a surprise Leclerc.
Carlos are stopping. We are not allowed to stop normally.
Understood, we'll report that.
I'm with you. I mean, it's frustrating.
So that's referring to everyone going incredibly slow on the exit of the pit lane.
That is a new rule for this year, and you're not meant to be doing it. It's not particularly ideal for those. You're not meant to do it in the junior categories, so you're not. They've moved that onto Formula One. It's usually F1 that creates the rule first, but there we go. But Max Verstappen is joining the back of that queue, trundling along. But we do have cars on track. I can't remember what I was saying previous to that. I think it was about the cars coming out on track. It was Oscar Piastri that was one of the first to make his way out onto circuit.
Yeah, everybody at the moment is out there, with the exceptions of the 2 Mercedes and Perez and Lando Norris in the McLaren. Everybody else there on an out lap at the moment for what will be their final runs in this Q2 session. A reminder, it is the slowest 5 drivers that will be eliminated from this session. Everybody from 11th downwards. So it's a fight to get into the top 10 and the eventual fight for pole position, which will take place just after Q2 in Q3 under the lights here in Bahrain. Over 4,000 lights used to illuminate this 5.4 kilometre track. 15 turns, 9 to the right, 6 to the left. And Alex Albon has just started a flying lap as he bolts down Alice to turn 1.
He does. Real tricky braking zone. The road is very bumpy going it down into that turn 1. And we do, again, another place that we see lockups, but Alex Albon has managed to stop his car perfectly. A little bit of traffic in front, which moves out the way. That looks like George Russell in the Mercedes. Now, in the previous session, we saw track evolution of around about 3/10, and Alex Albon is already 3/10 up on Lance Stroll. He continues nicely through turn 8, hits the throttle, the rear steps out ever so slightly as he manages to get the car stopped, putting on a lot to get that Williams around the corner in turn 10. And now DRS pushes the button wide open. Information on his steering wheel, just giving him the delta, giving him the gears, not too much information. He'll have a quick glance down to see a couple of balance changes he's making as well whilst driving along too. It's fantastic to see the drivers making these changes, and they do it so calmly, so easily. Second nature to them as he continues to make adjustments going down into the final corner. It's looking like not a bad lap for Alex Albon, but the question is, what is everybody else doing? Oscar Piastri jumps up into P6. Alex Albon crosses the line, only 8th.
I'll tell you
Whether that's safe, I'm not sure.
I'll tell you what, though, Piastri as well. I mean, it was an okay lap, but it wasn't the best. Nico Hülkenberg climbed up to second in the Haas at the moment. We're looking at lap times as well, coming through from Alonso. He's coming into the middle sector at the moment. Leclerc going quick in the middle sector as well. Daniel Ricciardo crosses the line in his RB and gets into the top 10, but only just. He'll still be at risk. Sainz, fastest of anybody in the middle sector, and he goes second fastest, the closest anybody's got to Verstappen so far. Yuki Tsunoda in the RB will be next across the line. The Japanese racer, what can he do? He goes 8th fastest, out-qualifies his teammate at the start of the season. He'll get to fight for a position in the top 10. Alonso crosses the line in the Aston Martin. He puts himself up into 3rd. That knocks Alex Albon down into the elimination zone along with Ricciardo. Hamilton is also at risk. He's on a lap at the moment. Personal best in Sector 1. He's going to need to find time throughout this lap, as is Russell, who is down there with him as well. Charles Leclerc goes to the top of the timing screens, 2/10 clear of Verstappen, a 1:29.165 from the Monegasque. But it's attention now to who will get through into the top 10. The two Mercedes are both at risk and find themselves outside of that top 10 in the elimination zone. Albon will be out, Ricciardo will be out, Magnussen is also going to be out as well. He's on a lap that's not good enough at all. Hamilton, 10th and a half up on Stroll for the time being, should be doable. Let's see what Russell does first. He'll cross the line before his teammate George Russell gets up into the top 6, just behind Nico Hülkenberg, 7.5 tenths off of Leclerc, and this is the sound of Lewis Hamilton crossing the line. He does get a good lap in, goes 4th fastest, and that knocks Yuki Tsunoda down into the elimination zone. 7 thousandths of a second separating him and a position in the top 10. Lance Stroll out of this session will start in 12th. Alex Albon 13th, Daniel Ricciardo in 14th, and Kevin Magnussen in 15th. Those drivers are now eliminated. Through go Leclerc, Verstappen, Sainz, Hamilton, Alonso, Hülkenberg in the Haas, Russell, Perez, Norris and Piastri to fight for the top 10 and the battle for pole. That got a bit fun at the end, didn't it, Alice?
It did. I mean, Max Verstappen, I don't know what he's doing in that first sector, but he is there's no one really close to him, and when I say close,
P11 was not a bad lap.
Yeah.
Yuki Tsunoda not particularly happy there on the radio, a bit frustrated. Usually he's a bit more expletive on the radio, but maybe because it's the first race of the season, he's saving that for later on. But Max Verstappen in that first sector is lightning fast. Everybody else, so Leclerc, for example, is 0.3 of a second off Max Verstappen in the first sector. So is Sainz, so is Alonso, so is Hülkenberg. So everyone sort of around Max Verstappen, and Hamilton could be included in that list as well, is nowhere near him. And as I said, sector 1 starts from the start-finish line. Turn 1, the first braking zone. Then turn 4 is your second braking zone. So only 2 braking zones, really. So whatever Max is doing in that sector, Andrew, is pretty impressive.
Also worth saying he's doing it on used tyres, and everyone else around him is on new tyres, apart from Perez, who didn't do his second run either. Red Bull both aborted both their runs when they saw that they were going to be safe, although Perez was not that safe in 8th place and only a couple of hundredths off, 2 or 3 tenths, off 10th. But, I mean, so Leclerc's taken new tyres, just to put it into perspective, to go just over 2 tenths quicker than Verstappen on used tyres. I don't think we've got any doubt about who's going to be on pole position in this next session.
But please still carry on listening.
Well, there we have it then. The end of Q2. The end of Q2 then, and we've lost Yuki Tsunoda, Lance Stroll.
I'm not here to hype it up, man. I'm here to tell the truth.
Benny, we wouldn't want you any other way, mate. Any other way.
and Kevin Magnussen. I'll tell you what was a good lap once again. Nico Hülkenberg in the Haas, getting that through up into the top 10, and Magnussen down in 15th. Once again, Hülkenberg very good in that Haas over one lap.
Impressive. And that's probably the most impressive lap. Okay, Max, if we're taking Max's lap out, let's just remove him
outside of
from
Max,
the
what's
equation.
impressed you the most
Hülkenberg,
so far?
because that is a really, I don't know what happened to Magnussen, but that was a super impressive lap. And Leclerc, he did a great job by making a good jump from where he was as well. But yeah, Nico, he loves pulling a lap out, doesn't he? And he's certainly done that in Q2.
He certainly does. And the two McLarens ended that 9th and 10th, just a whisker from elimination. Lando Norris ahead of Oscar Piastri as well, so that would have raised their eyebrows a little bit at the end of that, hoping to get a move on. Lance Stroll pipped at the very end as well. He gets eliminated, so his teammate made it through. Was 5th fastest at the end of that, so Stroll at best will start 12th for the opening Grand Prix of the season in his Aston Martin. Well, while we have a little bit of a gap in between this and at the beginning of Q3, Rosanna's gone for a little wander. Where are you, Rosanna?
Yeah, I'm in the paddock and it's twinkling beautifully. There are palm trees down the centre of the paddock here at the Bahrain International Circuit and lots of little twinkly lights up the trunk of the trees. And we've got a DJ revving up the crowd. And in the paddock, we've also got lots of fans around the media pen trying to get a photo of the drivers as they come to talk to the world's media. So they're all trying to get pictures. I'm getting in the way, as you might imagine, all 6'2" of me. But they're all here trying to see the 20 gladiators that we have in Formula One. The said gladiator is Esteban Ocon at the moment. Not sure he'd last that long in a gladiator setup, but he's talking to the media at the moment, and his teammate Pierre Gasly was in the pen a little earlier on. He's saying how everyone's pushing so hard inside the team at the moment at Alpine, but they have got what they've got essentially, and I don't think they were expecting much more from the car today, both starting right at the back on the final row of the grid, Esteban P19 and Pierre P20. So a difficult evening for Alpine. And then we've also been hearing from Valtteri Bottas and Zhou Guanyu from Sauber. They're looking a little bit disappointed, struggling today. Zhou's lap wasn't perfect, he said, but that's where they are. And then we heard from Logan Sargent as well, his teammate Alex Albon having a much better day of it in P13, but Logan saying that their race pace looks pretty decent, so that could bode well for Alex Albon at least, if he can haul that Williams up into the top 10, given they've had a total overhaul of their car this year.
Yeah, it certainly will. Well, thank you for that, Rosanna. Enjoy the rest of your wander as well. Yeah, Albon, you could do something from 13th, especially around this Bahrain circuit. You can overtake. There's 3 DRS zones, so it's not the be-all, end-all. Especially, I mean, that Williams is historical for its straight-line speed, but they have been talking about have they perhaps sacrificed a little bit of that for this season when it comes to finding then speed through the mid-corners. So it'll be interesting to see how that pans out tomorrow.
They're certainly not talking up their straight line speed compared to how it was last year, as you just said. So that will make the overtaking a little bit more difficult. But like there is 3 DRS zones, so that certainly helps with the overtaking. The start is crucial as well, making sure you keep your nose clean and you don't get into too much trouble. Which can, with this funnel effect at this turn 1 and then going down into turn 4, where it's tricky at the best of times, but certainly when you're jostling for position, can make it even harder with the camber not going in your favour. So it'll be a good... I think he'll be feeling confident. I think he will definitely be feeling confident tomorrow, will Alex. He'll want to make his way certainly into the top 10, but the crowd will certainly have a good time. As we are still waiting, Max Verstappen just looks so cool, doesn't he? Sat in his car, just sit there patiently waiting. We can hear engines firing up now though, Harry, and out of the pits, Oscar Piastri leads the way once again, and Max Verstappen with those shiny soft tyres and nearly an unsafe release there from George Russell. He had to jink out of the way to avoid hitting Max Verstappen. Let's see if Max comes on the radio. And I notice what Max is doing as well. He's putting, say, dipping some wheels, 2 wheels into the painted part of the, it's not technically the slow lane, but he's doing that to make sure, I'm guessing, no one moves past them as, again, they continue to slow down. And I'm sure Charles Leclerc if he comes out anytime soon, might have something else to say on the radio about that. So we'll also keep an eye on that unsafe release, Harry.
We certainly will. 11 minutes and 7 seconds then counting for this Q3 session, the top 10 shootout and the battle for the first pole position of the year. Well, will it be a battle? Because it does seem like Verstappen has pace on the field, but it's not over until it's over, and there's plenty else to watch throughout the rest of these top 10 positions. Fighting for them are indeed Verstappen and the Red Bull, his teammate Sergio Perez, the two Ferraris of Carlos Sainz and Charles Leclerc, the two Mercedes of Lewis Hamilton and George Russell, the two McLarens of Lando Norris and Oscar Piastri, the sole remaining Aston Martin in the hands of Fernando Alonso, and the surprise, I think, so far, the sole remaining Haas in the hands of Nico Hülkenberg. Keep an eye on him. Let's see how high he can get up the order. It'll be fascinating to see where he can put that Haas. But opening laps, then everybody coming out onto the soft compound of tyre. The grandstands well and truly filled up under the lights here around this Bahrain International Circuit, celebrating 20 years on the Formula One calendar. First coming on in 2004. We raced here using 3 different circuit layouts and have often been treated to some absolutely epic racing, whether it was in the daytime in years gone by or under the lights since 2014, and that brilliant battle between Lewis Hamilton and Nico Rosberg in the fight for the win. Lewis Hamilton starting his last season with Mercedes with his now teammate George Russell alongside him. Russell starting a lap now through turns 1 and 2 into the DRS zone and the approach of the right-hander of turn 4, and off he goes through into the middle sector, Alice.
They're half a second down on what Max Verstappen was doing in the first sector, but George Russell has just gone through and gained a couple of tenths on the others, but he's still a few tenths down compared to Max Verstappen. And Max Verstappen now has gone through the first sector and he has gone purple 2.5 tenths quicker than George Russell.
Used tyres for this as well, which will explain some of the gaps and the slower times, but let's wait and see. Verstappen, fastest of anybody in that middle sector at the moment. Nico Hülkenberg comes across the line and sets the fastest lap time, a 1:35, but is immediately displaced by Lando Norris, who gets in to the 1:29, to the 1:29.6, opening 2 lap times of Q3. Interestingly, Piastri crosses the line in 3rd behind Hülkenberg. Can't pip the German in the Haas or match his teammate George Russell. Comes across the line fastest so far with a 1:29.6 as lap times coming now from Leclerc in the middle sector. Verstappen goes fastest. Sainz coming into the middle sector as well. Lewis Hamilton is into the final sector along with Sergio Perez, who is just behind him in the Red Bull. Everybody out there bar Fernando Alonso in the Aston Martin, who was elected to stay put for the time being and perhaps run out of sync with the rest of the field. So Verstappen currently fastest then, a 1:29.4 in front of Russell. Then it's Norris 3rd. Perez slides his Red Bull into 4th in front of Lewis Hamilton. Hülkenberg is down in 6th in front of Piastri. And this is the sound of Carlos Sainz, who will come across the line in his Ferrari and moves himself up into 3rd spot with a 1:29.6. His teammate is also going fast in the middle sector and the final sector. Personal best, quicker than his teammate. Fastest of anybody in the final sector, enough to put him 2nd. Half a tenth back from Max Verstappen for the time being. So, opening lap time set then from everybody bar Fernando Alonso, and it's Verstappen who has provisional pole by just over half a tenth of a second from Charles Leclerc. George Russell is 3rd, Carlos Sainz 4th, Lando Norris is 5th, then it's Sergio Perez in 6th, Lewis Hamilton is 7th, Nico Hülkenberg 8th, Oscar Piastri 9th, Fernando Alonso 10th with no time on the board as it currently stands.
What's going on with Hamilton? Because he was super confident and happy after free practice 2, and then today I don't know what has gone on, whether he made a mistake possibly in that first run there, but he is a good way off. Well, he's a second off Max Verstappen and 8/10 off his teammate. So he's certainly struggling. But noticing on the pictures we were looking at, George Russell's car is certainly sparking a lot less than Lewis Hamilton's down the straight. So why would that be? Possibly Hamilton running a slightly lower ride height compared to George Russell, as Fernando Alonso now has made his way out onto the track. He's thought, I want the track to myself. Everyone is coming into the pits and he will have his wish. He is out there on track, and this will only be one run, so he won't be doing a second run. And the sound you can hear now is riding on board with George.
Right, it's really poor, turn 6, almost lost it.
George Russell complaining of the ride through there. Did look a little bit snappy, but seems to be working not too bad for him at the moment, certainly compared to his teammate, as Alonso continues his preparation lap, swooping round turn 11. Sorry, Andrew.
So Alex Alonso's obviously gone out thinking, well, I don't need to get my eye in with used tyres. I'm just going to go out, have a clear track for my run, sacrifice the ideal track conditions right at the end of the session just to avoid getting tangled up with any traffic.
Fernando Alonso then on his outlap at the moment, getting heat into all four of his Pirelli soft tyres as he makes his way round the final two corners. A three-time winner around this Bahrain circuit as he embarks on his flying lap in Q3 with just over 4.5 minutes remaining in this top 10 shootout as he slams on the brakes for turn 1. The DRS rear wing flap slams shut and he makes his way into the right-hander of turn 1. Then it's a quick left-hand jink, right hand once again down for turn 3, and then along the first of the straights here after the main straights for Fernando Alonso. Slings it into the right-hander of turn 4. Good overtaking opportunity there come the race. About a 10.5 down in the first sector compared to Max Verstappen. Makes his way through turns 5, 6, 7, the right-hander of 8, up through the gears, and now into that tricky left-hander of turn 10.
Yeah, he was a little bit wide there, Alice, at turn 6, wasn't he? And then you were just indicating big understeer going into turn 10. And the Aston Martin not looking that hooked up on this lap.
No, certainly not. Looks like he's just waiting for that front end to bite, which can be the most frustrating thing, especially going through those kind of tricky corners. But saying that, he's done purple in the middle sector, but of course the other drivers were not on a brand new set of softs. They are all starting to come out of the pits now as Fernando Alonso charges down into the final corner again, just waiting to that front end bite, keeps it off the curve. Very bumpy exit curve there. He, though, will only jump up to P3.
Fastest of anybody in the middle sector, though, for Fernando Alonso. And as you say, third fastest at the moment, just over a tenth slower than Verstappen, as the rest of the cars begin to come out of the pit lane. Andrew.
Worth saying as well, though, that an understeer balance in qualifying is not necessarily a bad thing for the race, because what happens, particularly at this track, as the rear tyres wear, the balance shifts more and more towards oversteer through a stint. So actually you want a little bit of understeer on a one lap. You don't want it on your one lap. It's the last thing you want on your qualifying lap. But in terms of having a holistic setup between qualifying and race, that might end up paying dividends for Alonso tomorrow.
So Alonso and Aston Martin, they might be taking a little bit of pain for qualifying if it helps them further in the race tomorrow, which will be a Saturday, just a reminder, and you can hear that build up on 5 Sports Extra from 2:45 in the afternoon ahead of the race start from 3 o'clock on 5 Sports Extra. 2 minutes remaining then of qualifying Q3, and it looks like it is Verstappen's pole position to lose, but how will the rest of the top 10 unfold so far? 10 of the fastest drivers in the world taking to this Bahrain international track. And it's Piastri and Lando Norris in the McLarens who are finding a little bit of time in the first sector, but not lighting things up. Personal bests for both of them. It'll be set against Alonso's, and actually Norris has lost time in that first sector. Nico Hülkenberg is out there in the Haas once again, going quickly as well. Keep an eye on the German in the Haas, who is quite handy around one lap. But Lando Norris then not as quick as Verstappen, losing time in that first sector. Piastri, personal best in sector 1. Everybody else on their outlap as we wait to see what they've got. It will be in the closing stages to see how it unfolds, with just a few more corners left to go then for Oscar Piastri. The Red Bull gets out of his way. Norris, fastest of anybody in the middle sector now, found a good bit of time in that middle sector. His teammate, the Australian, in his second season will cross the line first, enough to go 7th fastest, moves out of the way, and then Verstappen begins his lap and tries to get a nice bit of toe from the Aussie as he skates down to turn 1. Norris across the line, enough for 6th fastest, just about pips his teammate.
Now maybe that's what Max Verstappen's been doing, because I've noticed every single time he has timed it perfectly to get behind a car and get a little bit of a toe, even though it's not for the full length of the straight, just to help him get those few hundredths, maybe even get that 10th, that drag down the straight. And also, Carlos Sainz has done the same thing.
Yeah, he was getting a toe off Nico Hulkenberg's Haas in those closing stages. Verstappen then quick in that first sector, quickest of anybody. This is the sound of George Russell in the Mercedes, down on time in the first sector. Lewis Hamilton's found a bit of time in the middle sector, but it's all up against a blistering lap time currently being set by Max Verstappen. Hamilton is about 2.5 tenths down on Verstappen as it currently stands. George Russell will cross the line before his teammate. Let's see what Russell's got. He'll take the checkered flag. He's currently in 4th. Can he improve his time? Can he improve his position? He can. Goes up into 3rd. Lewis Hamilton follows behind. What can he do? Crosses the line. It's only enough for 8th place for Lewis Hamilton, with Sergio Perez still to cross the line as well. Max Verstappen now takes the checkered flag and cements his pole position, 3 tenths clear of Charles Leclerc. Charles Leclerc at the moment coming into the final sector, but is not finding enough time to do anything about that. Perez is in the middle sector. He's about 3 tenths down on his teammate. Leclerc crosses the line, can't improve anymore, stays in 2nd. Carlos Sainz and Sergio Perez are our next lookers to cross the line. Sainz loses time in that final sector, gets up into 4th spot. This is the sound of Sergio Perez, and it's only enough for 5th place for the Mexican, 3.5 tenths down on his own teammate Max Verstappen. And as Red Bull celebrate the first pole position of the year in 2024, goes the way of the reigning champion, the Dutchman Max Verstappen, ahead of Charles Leclerc in the Ferrari. George Russell in the Mercedes will start 3rd, Carlos Sainz 4th, Sergio Perez 5th, Fernando Alonso 6th. The 2 McLarens, Lando Norris and Oscar Piastri in 7th and 8th. Lewis Hamilton down in 9th in the Mercedes, and Nico Hulkenberg in the Haas will start from 10th.
Well, there we go, Max Verstappen on pole.
Who'd have thought that?
Who would have thought that? But we have got a really nice battle, or close times there, between George Russell and Fernando Alonso. Is just over half a tenth of a second, so they're very, very close. It's super close as well between Lando Norris and Oscar Piastri. Charles Leclerc just let himself down in that final sector. Here's Max.
I think it was enough, Max. It was enough. Well done.
I'm so sorry, GP.
Nothing to be sorry about, Max. Very good start. That was 2 tenths clear of Charles and 3 tenths clear of George.
Yeah, well, we think we did very well in that qualifying to get the most out of it. So thank you to everyone. Well done. Well done.
Max Verstappen then celebrating and being heard on the team radio. He pulls up into Parc Fermé then. He'll be joined by Charles Leclerc and George Russell. Makes it a Red Bull, Ferrari and Mercedes starting in the top 3. And with that pole position, Verstappen ties with Jim Clark and Alain Prost on 33 career poles. 5th on the all-time list. He broke enough records last year. He's going to probably break a few more this year and set even more records, is the Dutchman. Only 26 years old. How much he has achieved in Formula One already, and how much he will go on to achieve. An ominous sign of what's to come, and it's up to the rest of the pack to see. how quickly they can catch up with him. Gets out of the car and makes his way over with the FIA to be weighed and follow the Part for Make protocols, and then we'll hear what they have to say with a legend of the Formula One sport shortly, who will be interviewing them. So stay tuned for that one, not to be missed.
Max didn't sound he sounded a little bit surprised, I thought, on the radio. He must have come through on the radio during the lap, possibly, and said to his engineer that it's not enough. Maybe he felt he didn't quite have the pace, and he thought Ferrari were going to make a further jump. But it sounds like he's not still fully happy with his Red Bull car, but he should be. I mean, he's a couple of tenths clear up the road, and Charles Leclerc, I'm sure will be slightly disappointed with that, because he was legs above Max Verstappen in that final sector before this second run of times, but Max made a little bit more of a jump in the final sector, and Leclerc didn't really improve.
The stewards, no further action either on George Russell, failing to follow race directions and instructions when it comes to that maximum delta time as well. So no investigations pending to see where he will end up, so it will be remaining as that. Verstappen on pole in front of Leclerc, Russell, Sainz, Perez, the top 5, Alonso, Norris, Piastri, Hamilton, Hülkenberg, the top 10, Tsunoda, Stroll, Albon, Ricciardo, Magnussen, the top 15, Bottas, Joe, Sargent, Ocon and Gasly, the 20 drivers. And finally, we have our pecking order. Some surprises and some not so surprises. I think a standout for me is certainly Hülkenberg getting a good lap in that Haas and hauling it up into the top 10, especially considering how much they underplayed this season. But I think it's Verstappen, talk of the town, as the huge contingent of Dutch fans that have made their way to Bahrain celebrate. There really is a sea of orange. You could almost mistake for being in Zandvoort.
It's going to be a busy bar in our hotel, isn't it, with all the Dutch fans we've got staying in our hotel. A sea of orange everywhere in the hotel, but a great job again. How many times did we say that last year, even the season before, by Max Verstappen? My standout really is George, because he certainly hasn't felt particularly happy with his car, and he's definitely switched round with Lewis Hamilton, hasn't he? Lewis is going to be really, really disappointed with that 9th place.
Well, we can hear what they had to say shortly, as Leclerc has a glug of water. Looks like he worked hard for that one. Still, even though it's colder temperatures, still quite hot here in Bahrain. Air temperature just around 18 degrees Celsius. Smiles for George Russell as well. But it will be Max Verstappen who we hear from as we await now for race day and to see how that first race of 2024 kicks off. Everybody eagerly awaiting to see that run down into turn 1. You can overtake in Bahrain. It is possible. 3 DRS zones, heavy braking zones, tricky corners. Remember Alonso last year in turn 10, that left-hander, fantastic work from the wily old Spaniard. He'll be eyeing up another move from 6th on the grid, just like that, for Fernando Alonso. As we can, should we have a little listen in, see if we can hear what the drivers are saying?
And then the next time you go out, it's a bit still. It's very, I think with the wind and it's high as well.
Verstappen, I think, saying there a little bit of a problem with the audio, which might be fixed now, and thank goodness it is, because we'll be able to hear Max Verstappen talk to a former Formula One driver legend. It will be Jolyon Palmer, asking the questions that we all want the answers to. Let's hand to him now.
Max Verstappen, pole position, starting off 2024 like you finished 23. Look, a pretty routine session for you out there. It was very close, but how was it for you?
Yeah, it was a lot of fun actually. The track had a lot of grip, but with the wind, the last 2 days, it's been quite tricky to get the whole lap together. And it was the same in qualifying. Q1, Q2, of course, you naturally go a bit faster with the track ramping up. But then, to really get everything out of it in Q3 was a little bit more difficult. But of course, very happy to be on pole. To be honest, it was a little bit unexpected, but luckily in qualifying, I think the car came to us, and I felt a bit happier with the whole car.
Yeah, you mentioned it was unexpected. Through practice, you haven't been right at the front. We all expected maybe the Red Bull this year looks different, looked like it might be spectacular. It's not been so easy on one lap pace, but you came into this genuinely thinking that this was really a fight on.
Yeah, I said already yesterday, we just needed to fine-tune a few little things on the car to try and get that, let's say, perfect balance, even though with the wind that is not possible today. But luckily, I think we went in the right direction today, and we could really push a bit more with the car, and luckily then another step in qualifying.
And you're very used to starting from the front now. Another race tomorrow to try and win, take the lead of the championship and start a new campaign. Your race pace looks good. Are you feeling comfortable? Are you worried about any threat from somewhere?
Well, I think in the race is going to be close as well. We do look good in the race, and that's of course the most important. Yeah, we'll see tomorrow. I'm confident that we can have a strong race.
Okay, good luck. Well done, Max.
Thank you.
Charles Leclerc, second place, a very good qualifying, but in the end not quite enough for pole, but a good front row.
Yeah, I'm a bit disappointed, but yeah, we did a good qualifying. I mean, it's been a tricky weekend until now. We were trying quite a few things in FP1, FP2, FP3, and then I found the sweet spot in qualifying. Q1 was a bit tricky. Unfortunately, we put 2 new sets of soft, which compromised a little bit the Q3. But all in all, it's quite a good qualifying, a good start of the year. We are in a better place compared to a year ago, so that is good. Now we have to see the race pace tomorrow.
And a couple of tenths today between yourself and Max out front. When you look back and you're going to the data, can you see how that might be possible? It looked really close until that point.
Oh yeah, I mean in Q2 I think I did a 0.1, which was more or less the lap time that Max did in Q3, so it was there in the car. I think we lost a little bit the rhythm with the used set of C3 in Q3. Then you have to readapt to the new tyres, and I lost a little bit there, but all in all it's been a positive quali.
And from the end of last year, you're very used to starting alongside Max at the front, both of you qualifying so well. What can we expect from Ferrari in the race? Wasn't necessarily a strong point last year. Are you confident you can take the fight to him?
I'm confident we did a step forward, but we have to wait and see tomorrow how much of a step forward we did. We really think that Red Bull is still ahead by quite a bit in the race, I mean, so we'll see. But if there's an opportunity, as always, I'll go for it, and we see what happens tomorrow.
All right, well done, Charles.
Thank you very much.
George Russell, well done. Top 3 to start the year out. You've got to be pleased with that for Mercedes after where you've been the start of the last couple of seasons. Looks like a big step forward.
Yeah, absolutely. Everybody at the factory have done an amazing job to give Lewis and I a car that we feel much happier with, a base that we can build upon. But ultimately, Max is still out there in front. We've still got some catching up to do. But I think when we look at our qualifying performances of the last 2 years in Bahrain and our race pace, starting P3 for tomorrow is a great place.
Yeah, it looks a big step forward. Even from last week, people were saying the race pace was strong from the Mercedes, but the qualifying pace may be a bit of a weakness. You look like you've turned that round in the space of a week. Has there been a lot of work gone in between testing here and racing here?
Yeah, huge amount of work. We've had some really great drivers back at base doing the work on the simulator. Lewis and I have been back on the simulator as well, fine-tuning the setup, making some improvements. Time will tell tomorrow if we've obviously made a big step forward in single lap in the qualifying pace. We hope we haven't compromised the race pace at all. I think it'll be a close fight between everybody other than Max.
What's the goal then? A podium or dreaming of the win?
No, I think obviously Red Bull was so strong at the moment. Max is doing a really great job. He's got the new tyres as well. I think if there's an opportunity to take the lead, we'll go for it. But ultimately, I think the race is for all of us is for second. But as I said, nobody knows. It's the first race of the season. So excited to be back, and let's hope for some craziness.
All right, we look forward to seeing it. Well done, George.
Thank you.
That was former Formula One driver Jolyon Palmer asking the questions to your top 3 finishers in qualifying this evening. Max Verstappen for Red Bull will start on pole position alongside Charles Leclerc in P2 for Ferrari, and then it's George Russell in the Mercedes on the second row in P3. A great selection of drivers to kick-start this incredible season, this record-breaking season, 24 races, and it all starts here in Bahrain tomorrow. We hope you'll join us at 2:45 as we get ready for the Grand Prix. That kicks off at 3 o'clock, lights out at 3 o'clock UK time. I'll be joined by the BBC's chief F1 writer Andrew Benson, Alice Powell, racing driver and broadcaster, and our lead commentator Harry Benjamin. They'll be there to talk you through every lap here in Bahrain. Thank you for joining us this evening. Max Verstappen on pole for Red Bull, starting off from where they left off in 2023. This has been an IMG production for BBC Radio 5 Live.